January of '76, northern Wyoming, and the blizzard had been howling 3 days straight when I heard them screams cutting through the wind like a knife through canvas. I was standing there in knee-deep snow, watching a mountain lion tear into two Apache women like they was nothing but Sunday dinner, blood spraying red across white snow. Ain't nothing in this world looks more final than that. Any sensible man would have turned around, headed back to his failing ranch, let nature take its course. But I reckon sense ain't never been my strong suit. See, I'd made a promise to my dying wife 2 winters back. Do right by folks who got nobody else. Didn't understand what she meant till I was standing over that dead cat with my hands still shaking, and them 2 women looking at me like they'd been expecting me all along. By dawn, I'd either find out why, or I'd be frozen solid right beside that beast. That mountain lion had maybe 60 seconds left to live, but she didn't know it yet. I'd been hauling firewood back to my ranch, what was left of it anyway, when I heard the screams, human screams, high and terrified, cutting through the wind like church bells on Sunday. My ranch was 3 miles south, nothing but frozen wasteland between me and whoever was dying out there in the white. Should have kept walking. Had my own troubles, 12 scrawny cattle that wouldn't last the week, a well running dry, and enough firewood for maybe 4 more days if I was careful. Evelyn had been dead 2 winters, and I'd been dying slow ever since, just hadn't had the decency to lie down yet. But that promise kept gnawing at me. Do right by folks who got nobody else. I dropped the firewood and ran toward the screaming. Found them pinned against a rock outcropping about a quarter-mile east. 2 Apache women, one older, one younger. The younger one had a twisted ankle, couldn't run. The older one stood between her sister and that cat with nothing but a wicker gathering basket, like she figured she could will that beast to stop. The mountain lion was massive, maybe 160 pounds of muscle and hunger. She'd been driven down from the high country by the blizzard, desperate, starving. Her ribs showed through her golden coat. She weren't evil, just doing what cats do when they're dying themselves. Didn't make her any less deadly. I grabbed the only thing within reach, a fence post from an old boundary line, half rotted, but still had a rusted nail sticking out the end. Weren't much of a weapon, but it was what I had. "Hey!" I shouted, voice getting swallowed by the wind. "Hey, you mangy bastard!" The cat turned, looked at me with those yellow eyes, calculating. I was bigger prey, more meat, but also more dangerous. She had to choose. She chose wrong. The cat launched at me, and I swung that fence post like I was splitting wood. Connected with her skull, heard the crack even over the wind, but it weren't enough. She crashed into me, and we went down together in the snow. Her claws raked across my chest, 3 deep gashes that burned like fire even in the cold. The fence post broke clean in half. Then it was just me and her and my bare hands. I got my fingers around that rusted nail piece, drove it into her throat. Once, twice. Third time, I felt something give way inside her. Hot blood poured over my hands, steaming in the cold. She thrashed once more, claws catching my forearm, then went still. I laid there in the red snow, chest heaving, pain starting to register through the shock. 3 claw marks across my ribs, bleeding freely. Forearms torn up. Hands cut from gripping broken wood. Figured I'd earned a thank you at least. Instead, them 2 women just stood there watching me, not running, not screaming no more, just watching, like they'd been expecting this exact thing to happen. As the older one stepped forward, dark eyes studying my face with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. She was maybe 40, with streaks of gray in her black hair and hands that looked like they'd tended wounds before. "You're Silas Cartwright," she said. Not a question, a statement. I struggled to my feet, blood running down my chest. "How'd you know my name?" "Chief Makia's been waiting for you," she replied, calm as Sunday morning. "Been waiting near 3 winters now." My head was spinning. From blood loss or confusion, I couldn't tell. "I ain't never met your chief. Never even spoke to Apache folks before today." The younger one, maybe 25, pretty despite the pain in her ankle, bent down and picked something up from beneath the dead cat. A small carved bone, already gathering ice crystals. She held it up to what little light broke through the storm. Strange symbols etched into the surface, markings I'd never seen. "This was under the cat," she said in perfect English, her voice carrying odd certainty. "Someone dropped it here recently." The older woman touched my wounded chest, fingers tracing the claw marks with careful precision. 3 cuts, she murmured. Just like he said there'd be. Just like who said, I demanded, but my legs were starting to shake. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only burning pain and a cold that was seeping into my bones. She looked me dead in the eye. Your wife, 2 winters ago, she came to our settlement, 3 days before she died. She told Chief Makia to watch for a white man who'd risk everything for strangers. She said when the time came, we'd know him by 3 marks across his chest. The world tilted sideways. Evelyn had visited the Apache 3 days before the fever took her. That's impossible, I whispered. Is it? The older woman gestured to my chest, where blood was already freezing to my torn shirt. You're bleeding out, Silas Cartwright, and you got maybe 2 choices. Ride back to your ranch alone and freeze to death, or come with us and find out why your wife sent you to us before you even knew you were coming. Weren't no choice, really. I was bleeding bad, and the storm was getting worse. The older woman introduced herself as Naoma while she worked on my chest. Her sister Kai binding my forearm with strips of clean cloth they pulled from somewhere in their winter wraps. They moved efficient, practiced, like they'd tended wounds plenty of times before. Can you ride? Naoma asked, studying my face for signs of shock. Can I sit a horse without falling off? Probably. Can I do it well? That's another question. Kai managed a small smile despite the pain in her ankle. Good enough. The journey to their settlement took near an hour, trudging through snow that came up past our knees in places. Kai rode double with her sister on a horse that appeared from nowhere. I was too light-headed to question where it came from. They sat me on another mount, a steady old gelding that seemed to know the path even when I couldn't see 2 feet ahead. The whole time, my mind kept circling back to what Naoma said. Evelyn had visited the Apache 3 days before she died. The woman could barely get out of bed those final weeks, fever burning her up from the inside. How'd she manage a trip to an Apache settlement? And what did she tell them about me? The valley appeared sudden, like the storm just opened up and let us through. Protected by red rock formations that rose like cathedral walls, blocking the worst of the wind. I could see smoke rising from maybe 30 lodges, warm light glowing from windows, the sound of life continuing despite the brutal cold outside. It was hidden so well I could have passed within 100 yards and never known folks lived here. How long's your people been in this valley? I asked Naoma as we descended. 3 generations, she replied. My grandfather chose this place because it has everything we need. Water that don't freeze, shelter from the wind, and most important, it's invisible to those who drive us away. We rode past families going about evening tasks, women tending cook fires, men bringing in firewood, children playing in the snow, their laughter cutting through the wind. They all stopped to watch us pass, the bloodied white man being led through their settlement like some kind of strange prize. The whispers started immediately. I couldn't understand the Apache words, but I knew the sound of gossip when I heard it. They're wondering why you're here, Kai said quietly. Why Naoma's bringing a white man to the chief's fire. I'm wondering the same damn thing, I muttered. We stopped at the largest dwelling, smoke rising steady from the center. A man stood waiting outside, tall, broad-shouldered, maybe 35, with scars across his knuckles and a rifle held casual in the crook of his arm. His eyes were hard when they landed on me. Naoma, he said, his voice carrying warning. What is this? This is Silas Cartwright, she replied, helping me down from the horse. The one father's been watching for. The man's expression shifted from suspicion to something else. Recognition, maybe, or resignation. The chief said you'd come. Didn't say you'd be half dead when you did. Who's asking? I managed, trying to stand straight despite the burning in my chest. Itasca, Naoma and Kai's brother. He looked me up and down, taking measure. You killed the cat that was hunting my sisters. Seemed like the thing to do at the time. His mouth twitched. Might have been a smile, hard to tell. Chief Makia's inside, been waiting to meet you proper. The dwelling's interior was warm, almost stifling after the cold outside. A fire burned in the center pit, smoke rising through the opening above. An older man sat on a simple wooden chair, silver-streaked hair pulled back, hands folded calm in his lap. His eyes, when they met mine, were sharp enough to cut. "Silas Cartwright," he said in clear English. "Please, sit. You look like you're about to fall over." I took the offered seat across from him, aware that half the settlement was probably gathered outside, listening. "You've got me at a disadvantage, Chief. You seem to know all about me, but I don't know a damn thing about you." "That's because you've been too busy surviving to notice anyone watching." He leaned forward slightly. "But I've been watching you for 3 winters now. Ever since your wife came to me 3 days before the fever took her and told me something that seemed impossible at the time." My heart was hammering. "What did she tell you?" "She said her husband was going to save my daughter's lives. Said he'd know them by 3 cuts across his chest, delivered by a beast driven mad by hunger and weather." The chief's eyes never left mine. "She said when that happened, I'd know you were the man who could help us survive what's coming." "What's coming?" I whispered, though part of me already knew the answer. Chief Makia stood and walked to the fire. In the flickering light, I could see the weight he carried, the burden of protecting his people. "Marshal Clyde Baxter, federal land agent. He's been buying up territory all around us, pushing toward this valley. And when he can't buy what he wants, he finds other ways to take it." He turned back to face me. "Your wife said you were a man who kept his promises, that you'd do right by folks, even when it cost you everything. So I'm asking you straight, will you stand with us when Baxter comes, or will you ride back to your dying ranch and wait for him to take that too?" Before I could answer, a commotion outside. Raised voices. And then Itasca burst through the entrance, his face tight with urgency. "Chief," he said, breathing hard. "Riders approaching from the east. 6 men, armed, moving fast despite the storm." "Baxter's men?" the chief asked. Itasca shook his head. "Worse. It's Oswin Hadley and his crew. The settlers from the trading post. The ones who've been calling Silas here an Injun lover for sharing his well water." My stomach dropped. I knew Oswin. Young, hot-headed, full of talk about keeping the territory pure and civilized. If he'd followed me here, it weren't for a friendly visit. Chief Makia looked at me with something like sadness. "Seems your choice is being made for you, Silas Cartwright. Those men come here, they'll see you with us. Won't matter that you saved my daughters. Won't matter that you're bleeding from defending Apache women. They'll call you traitor, and the word will spread." The sound of hoofbeats grew louder, closer. Through the entrance, I could see torches approaching through the snow, 6 points of fire cutting through the white darkness. Itasca chambered a round in his rifle. "What do we do, Chief?" Makia's voice was steady, but I heard the steel underneath. "We welcome them, show them Apache hospitality, and we see what they've come to say." He looked at me one last time. "But Silas, understand this. The moment you stand beside us when they arrive, there's no going back. Your neighbors will know, Baxter will know, and everything you got left will be marked for taking." The torches were at the valley entrance now. I could hear Oswin's voice carrying over the wind. "We know you're in there, Cartwright. Come out now or we're coming in." I stood up slow, every muscle screaming protest. The 3 claw marks across my chest burned like hot iron, but I weren't about to show weakness, not now. "I'm coming out," I called toward the entrance. "Ain't no need for trouble." Chief Makia's hand on my shoulder stopped me. "You don't owe them explanations." "Maybe not, but they followed me here through a blizzard. That takes effort. Least I can do is hear what they got to say." Truth was, I knew exactly what they had to say. I'd heard it before at the trading post in town. Everywhere, white folks gathered and talked about the Indian problem like it was something that needed solving instead of people who needed living beside. I stepped outside into the storm. The 6 riders sat their horses in a rough semicircle, torches guttering in the wind. Oswin Hadley at the center, maybe 25 years old, face hard with certainty. The kind of certainty that comes from never being hungry, never being driven from your home, never having to question whether you deserved the ground you stood on. Behind me, I sensed the Apache families gathering, watching, waiting to see what kind of man I really was. "Oswin," I said, keeping my voice level, Hell of a night for a ride. We came to bring you back, Cartwright. His eyes flicked to the blood on my torn shirt, the bandages visible beneath. Before you do something foolish. Little late for that. Already fought a mountain lion barehanded. Don't get much more foolish. One of the other riders, a thick-set man named Clyde Tucker, spat into the snow. We heard you killed a cat. Heard you did it protecting them. He jerked his chin toward Naoma and Kai, who stood in the doorway behind me. That true? They're women. Cat was going to kill them. Seemed straightforward to me. Straightforward. Oswin's laugh was harsh. You know what Baxter's going to do when he hears about this? When word gets around that Silas Cartwright's taking sides with the Apache. I ain't taking sides. I'm just standing where my conscience tells me to stand. Your conscience. Tucker leaned forward in his saddle. Your conscience is going to get your ranch burned, your cattle slaughtered, your name dragged through every town between here and Fort Brennan. My ranch is already dying, I said quietly. My cattle are half-starved, and my name? Well, I reckon a man's name is only worth what he does to earn it. Oswin's face twisted. We tried to warn you, Cartwright, tried to tell you that sharing your well water, helping these people, being soft, it was going to come back on you, but you wouldn't listen, and now look at you. Standing with savages while your own kind. Careful with that word, I interrupted, and something in my voice made him stop. Real careful. The silence stretched tight. Wind howled. Torches flickered. 6 armed men on one side, one bleeding rancher on the other, with a whole Apache settlement at his back. Then Naoma stepped forward, moving past me to stand in the open. Her voice carried clear over the wind. You came to take him back. To save him from his foolishness, is that right? Oswin's jaw tightened. We came to bring our neighbor home before he ruins himself. Your neighbor. She looked back at me, then at them. When was the last time any of you rode to his ranch to help? When his wife was dying? When his well was running dry? When his cattle were dropping from thirst? Silence. The kind that answers questions better than words. He shared his water with us, Naoma continued. With our children, our elders. Asked nothing in return, expected nothing, did it because it was right. She paused. And today, he fought a mountain lion to save my sister's life. Used his bare hands when his weapon broke. Took 3 cuts across his chest that should have killed him. She walked closer to Oswin's horse, looking up at him without fear. So you tell me, which neighbors showed him more kindness? The ones who share his blood, or the ones who share his values? Tucker shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. Another rider, younger, wouldn't meet her eyes, but Oswin's face hardened further. Fine words, but words don't change facts. Baxter's coming. He's got federal authority, legal papers, and enough hired guns to clear this whole valley if he wants. And when he does, he looked straight at me. Where will you be, Cartwright? Standing with them when the shooting starts? Or will you come to your senses? Before I could answer, Chief Makia stepped out to stand beside me. Then Itasca. Then Kai, limping on her bad ankle but standing tall. One by one, Apache families moved forward until I was surrounded. Not threatened, supported. I reckon you got your answer, I said to Oswin. His face flushed with anger and something else. Maybe disappointment, maybe fear. Then you're a traitor to your own kind. And when Baxter comes, don't expect any help from us. Never did, I replied. They wheeled their horses around, torches trailing sparks in the snow. But before they rode off, Oswin turned back one last time. Baxter's already on his way, Cartwright. Got word 3 days ago he'd filed federal eviction orders. He'll be here within the week, and he's bringing cavalry from Fort Brennan. My blood went cold. Cavalry? 20 soldiers, maybe more. Legal authority to remove squatters and those who harbor them. Oswin's smile was cruel. You just signed your own death warrant. Hope it was worth it. They disappeared into the storm, taking their torches and their threats with them. I stood there shaking, from cold, from pain, from the weight of what I'd just done. Everything Oswin said was true. I'd just made myself a target, thrown away whatever safety I had left. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Chief Makia's voice, quiet but firm. You stood with us, now we stand with you. And Naoma, touching my arm gentle where the bandages covered the cat's damage. 3 cuts. Just like the prophecy. Just like your wife said. I looked at these people, strangers an hour ago, family now, and felt something I hadn't felt since Evelyn died. Purpose. Belonging. The sense that maybe, just maybe, I was finally keeping that promise. But then a young scout came running from the eastern ridge, snow flying from his boots, face pale with panic. Chief, riders coming from the south, different group moving fast, and they're flying federal colors. My stomach dropped. Baxter's early. No, the scout gasped, trying to catch his breath. It's worse. It's Captain Thomas Miller from Fort Brennan, and he's got arrest warrants. For you, Chief Makia, and for Silas Cartwright, both charged with conspiracy to resist federal authority. Chief Makia and I locked eyes. The trap was springing faster than anyone expected. How long? The chief asked. They're an hour out, maybe less in this storm if they're pushing hard. 1 hour. 60 minutes to decide whether to run, hide, or stand, and face whatever Baxter had set in motion. And I had a sinking feeling that no matter which choice we made, dawn was going to bring blood. 1 hour to prepare for arrest, or worse. Chief Makia moved fast despite his years. Itasca, gather the council. Naoma, tend to Cartwright's wounds properly. He's no good to us bleeding out. Kai, send word to the outer camps. Everyone needs to know what's coming. The settlement transformed. What had been peaceful evening routines became controlled urgency. Warriors emerged from lodges carrying rifles. Women gathered children indoors. Elders moved toward the council fire with the practiced calm of folks who'd faced threats before. I stood there useless, head swimming. Chief, maybe I should just turn myself in. No point in your people suffering for what? Makia's eyes were hard. For showing basic human decency? For helping a neighbor in need? That's not crime, Cartwright. That's civilization. Real civilization, not the kind Baxter's trying to force on us with legal papers and rifles. Naoma pulled me into a dwelling where firelight made shadows dance on hide walls. She worked on my chest wounds with steady hands, stitching the deepest cuts while I bit down on a leather strap. Your wife knew this was coming, she said quietly, needle pulling thread through torn skin. Not the specifics, but the shape of it. She told my father that you'd face a choice, run and live small or stand and risk everything. She say which one I'd choose? She said you'd choose whatever let you look at yourself in a mirror come morning. Naoma tied off a stitch. Said that's why she married you. You were too stubborn to compromise on what was right, even when being right cost you everything. My eyes burned, and it weren't from the pain. She also mentioned I was too stubborn to listen when she told me to see a doctor about that fever. Too stubborn to admit I couldn't fix everything myself? Naoma's hands paused. Grief makes us hard on ourselves, guilt even harder. Outside, I heard dogs barking, that particular sound they make when something's wrong. Storm dogs, Evelyn used to call them, animals that could sense danger on the wind. How long have I got? I asked. Before you bleed out or before the cavalry arrives? She almost smiled. The bleeding I can stop. The cavalry, that's a different kind of wound. A low drumbeat started from the council fire, slow, steady, like a heartbeat. The rhythm Apache used when making big decisions, Naoma explained. Each beat a moment to think, to weigh consequences, to choose wisely. We should run, came a voice from outside. Young Billy, the scout. Take to the high country, wait out the winter, come back when. When what? Itasca's voice, sharp. When Baxter's railroad is built through our sacred ground. When our lodges are burned and our valleys full of white settlers who'll never leave? Better than dying. Is it? That was Chief Makia. Is living on your knees better than dying on your feet? Is running better than making them see us, acknowledge us, treat us as human beings with legal rights? The drumbeat continued, steady, insistent. Naoma finished with my chest, started wrapping my forearm. There's something you should know, she said, voice low so only I could hear. About Oswin Hadley. What about him? His sister Mary. She's married to our cousin. Lives 2 valleys over with her husband and babies. Oswin knows this. Has known for 2 years. I stared at her. Then why's he riding with? Because he's been playing a part, staying close to Baxter's men, learning their plans, keeping his sister safe by seeming to be one of them. She met my eyes. He followed you here tonight not to threaten you, to warn you. That speech about Baxter coming, that was intelligence, not intimidation. My head spun trying to make sense of it. But he called me traitor. Called you? Words his companions expected to hear. Words that would keep his cover intact. Naoma tied off the bandage. Sometimes the people who seem against you are the only ones truly on your side. And sometimes the ones who smile and shake your hand are already plotting your grave. A shout from outside. The drumbeat stopped. I stumbled to the entrance. On the eastern ridge I could see them. Torches. Dozens of them. Not 6 riders like before. Not 20 cavalry. More. Maybe 50. Maybe 75. Too many to count through the snow and darkness. But these weren't federal colors. These were settlers. Townfolk. Every white man within 20 miles who'd heard about a traitor standing with the Apache. Lord have mercy, I whispered. Chief Makia stood beside me, face grim. This is worse than cavalry. Soldiers follow orders, can be reasoned with through law. But a mob? He shook his head. A mob follows fear and hatred. No reasoning with that. The torches descended toward the valley like fallen stars, dozens of points of fire cutting through the white darkness. I could hear voices now, angry and afraid in equal measure. Cartwright, we know you're in there. Come out and face judgment. Traitor. Indian lover. The words merged into a roar, like wind through a canyon, like water over falls. The sound of civilized men becoming something else. Itasca chambered around. Other warriors did the same. Women pulled children deeper into lodges. The elders stood near the council fire, faces showing neither fear nor defiance, just acceptance of whatever came next. We could fight them, Itasca said, voice tight. Defend the valley entrance. They'd have to come through a narrow gap. We'd have advantage. And kill how many? Chief Makia asked quietly. 30, 40. Then what? More come. Then cavalry comes to restore order. Then we're not victims of prejudice. We're murderers who slaughtered innocent settlers. Innocent? Itasca's laugh was bitter. In the eyes of the law, yes. The chief turned to me. Silas, I'm going to ask you one more time. You can still walk out there. Tell them you were held against your will, that we threatened you. Give them someone to blame besides themselves, and maybe they'll leave satisfied. I looked at the torches getting closer, looked at Naoma, who'd stitched my wounds, at Kai, who I'd saved from the cat, at Itasca, who'd called me traitor an hour ago and now stood ready to defend me, at Chief Makia, who'd been watching me for 3 winters, waiting to see if Evelyn was right about the kind of man I was. No, I said. I stand here. The chief nodded slowly. Then we all stand. The mob reached the valley entrance. I could see faces now in the torchlight, men I'd traded with, bought supplies from, nodded to in passing. Fear had made them strangers to themselves. Someone threw the first torch over the barricade. It landed in snow, hissed, went out, then another, and suddenly the whole valley entrance was ablaze with thrown torches, fire meeting snow, steam rising like ghosts, and the mob's roar getting louder, closer, more dangerous. By dawn, Chief Makia said quietly, either we find a way to make them see reason, or this valley becomes our grave. But I was staring at something else. Through the flames and steam and chaos, I saw a rider breaking away from the mob, moving fast, spurring his horse toward the back ridge. It was Oswin Hadley. And he was riding straight for Fort Brennan, where Captain Miller and his cavalry were waiting. The mob didn't breach the valley that night, but they didn't leave neither. They camped at the entrance, fires burning through the darkness, voices carrying on the wind, threats, demands. The occasional gunshot fired into the air, reminders that they had weapons and the will to use them. Inside the settlement, we waited. I sat by the council fire, chest throbbing despite Naoma's stitching, watching Chief Makia study a leather document case he'd pulled from somewhere safe. His face was grim in the firelight. Kai limped over, settling beside me with careful movements. Her ankle was wrapped tight, but every step clearly cost her. She pulled out a piece of charcoal and a flat stone, began drawing something. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't answer, just kept drawing. After a minute, I recognized it. A map. The valley, the surrounding ridges, the routes in and out. She marked the mob's position with an X, then added another mark to the south. "That's where the cavalry will come from," she said quietly. First words she'd spoken directly to me. Her voice was softer than Naoma's, but carried the same steady strength. "How do you know?" "My father taught me to read land, read weather, read men's intentions by how they move." She added more marks to her map. "Captain Miller won't come through the mob. Too many witnesses. He'll circle south, come in the back way, make it look official and clean." "Your father," I hesitated. "Naoma said he was killed. Said Baxter was behind it." Kai's hand paused, charcoal hovering over stone. "3 years ago, they called it a hunting accident. Said he fell, broke his neck." Her jaw tightened. "But my father never fell, never stumbled. He knew every rock, every tree, every dangerous spot in these mountains." "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Help us prove it wasn't an accident." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something I recognized. The same determination I'd seen in Evelyn's eyes when she was dying and making me promise to do right by folks. "That's why you're here, isn't it? Why she sent you to us, not just to save us from the cat, to help us save ourselves from men like Baxter." Before I could respond, Naoma appeared with 2 cups of something hot. She handed one to me, one to her sister. "Drink. You both need strength." The liquid was bitter, warming, made from herbs I didn't recognize. We sat there in silence, 3 people who'd been strangers that morning, now bound by blood and choices and something deeper I didn't have words for. "There's something you need to see," Chief Makia said, approaching with his document case. He sat across from us, opened it carefully. Inside were papers, official-looking with seals and signatures. "What are these?" I asked. "Legal title to this land. Granted by the territorial government in 1861 in exchange for our service as scouts during the Apache Wars." He spread them out carefully. "Most folks assume we're squatters. They're wrong." I stared at the documents. Legal land ownership by Apache people was rarer than hen's teeth. "Does Baxter know about these?" "He knows. That's why he's using federal authority instead of territorial, claiming railroad easement, national interest, eminent domain." The chief's voice was bitter. "But there's something he doesn't know. Something buried in these old treaties that even I'd forgotten until tonight." He pulled out another document, older, more fragile. The ink was faded, but the seal was clear. "United States Federal Government, 1868. Winter Sanctuary Law," he read aloud. "Ratified after the Washita River Massacre, when cavalry forced a winter march that killed hundreds. The law states, no eviction or forced relocation of recognized tribal settlements may occur during winter months, defined as first snowfall through final thaw." My heart started beating faster. We're in the middle of the worst blizzard in years. Exactly. Any eviction order issued now is illegal under federal law. Baxter's authority means nothing until spring. He looked at me. "But there's more. The law also states that any person providing shelter to tribal members during winter months holds temporary guardian rights over those sheltered." "Guardian rights?" Naoma spoke up. "You saved us, brought us to safety. Under this law, you're legally responsible for our protection until spring thaw." "Which means," Chief Makia continued, "any attack on us becomes an attack on you. And since you're a white citizen with federal protection, that changes everything. Baxter can't touch us without going through you first." I sat back, mind spinning. "So we have legal ground to stand on." "We do, if we can prove it before Captain Miller arrives with those arrest warrants." The chief's expression darkened. "But there's a problem. These documents, we need them verified by a federal judge. And the nearest one is in Cheyenne, 3 days' ride in good weather. In this storm, week, maybe more. Kai touched my arm, the gesture so gentle I almost didn't feel it through the pain. There might be another way. She pulled something from inside her dress. A small journal, leather-bound, water-stained. My father kept records. Everything he saw, everything Baxter did. Forged documents, bribed officials, murdered witnesses. Her voice cracked slightly. He knew Baxter would come for him eventually, so he wrote it all down. Where did you get that? Naoma asked, shocked. The mission church. Father Elwood's been keeping it safe, waiting for the right time. Kai opened it carefully. Pages of meticulous handwriting, dates, names, details. This is evidence, real evidence. Enough to bring federal investigators, maybe even territorial marshals. Hope flared in my chest, bright and painful. Then we show this to Captain Miller. Prove Baxter's corrupt. The cavalry will have to— Captain Miller works for Baxter, Itasca said, appearing from the shadows. His face was grave. That's the news I just got from our scout. Miller's daughter is engaged to Baxter's nephew. The captain's been on Baxter's payroll for 2 years, making sure federal authority sides with railroad interests. The hope died as quick as it came. There's more, Itasca continued. Oswin Hadley, the rider who broke away from the mob. He didn't go to Fort Brennan. Then where? He went to the telegraph office in town, sent a message to the territorial governor. Itasca's expression was unreadable. Either he's betraying us worse than we thought, or he's doing what his sister asked him to do, Naoma finished quietly, getting help from someone higher than Baxter. We sat in silence, the weight of uncertainty pressing down. The mob outside, the cavalry coming, corrupt officers, evidence that might mean nothing if shown to the wrong people. Then Kai did something unexpected. She reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were small, cold, trembling slightly, not from fear, from determination. My father's last words, she said, voice barely above a whisper. He said, trust the one who shares water. He'll finish what I started. She squeezed my hand. You're that man, Silas Cartwright. I know it. My sister knows it. The chief knows it. I looked at her, this young woman who'd lost her father to Baxter's greed, who'd nearly died under a mountain lion's claws, who was trusting me with her family's survival. I'm just a failed rancher, I said. I got nothing to offer but a stubborn streak and a promise I made to a dead woman. Sometimes, Chief Makia said, that's exactly what's needed. Before anyone could say more, young Billy burst through the entrance, face white with terror. Chief, riders approaching from the south, federal cavalry like we expected, but he struggled to catch his breath. It's not 20 soldiers, it's 50, maybe more. And they're not just carrying rifles. What are they carrying? Itasca demanded. Billy's voice shook. Gatling guns, 2 of them. Enough firepower to level this entire valley in minutes. The leather document case slipped from Chief Makia's hands. The Winter Sanctuary Law, the legal protections, the evidence in Kai's journal, none of it would matter against that kind of military force. How long? The chief asked. Hour. Maybe less if they push hard. I stood, legs shaking, chest burning. Then we got 1 hour to figure out how to stop a massacre. Kai stood with me, still holding my hand. Naoma on my other side. Chief Makia, Itasca, the elders, the warriors, all of them standing together. Or 1 hour, Chief Makia said quietly, to die with dignity intact. Outside, the mob's fires burned brighter, and from the south, barely visible through the storm, I saw new lights approaching. Federal torches, military precision. And somewhere behind it all, I knew Baxter was watching, waiting to see his careful plan destroy everything we were trying to protect. 50 soldiers, 2 Gatling guns, 1 hour. The math was simple and brutal. We couldn't fight that, couldn't run from it, couldn't hide from military force designed to break resistance before it started. I stood at the valley entrance, watching those federal torches approach through the storm. Behind me, Families were making preparations, the kind you make when you know death's coming and want to face it with dignity intact. Silas, Chief Makia's voice, quiet. There's something I need to tell you about your wife's visit 3 winters back. I turned. The old chief looked older now, worn down by the weight of trying to protect his people against impossible odds. She didn't just tell me to watch for you, he continued. She told me something else. Said if this day came, and she knew it would, I should remember that sometimes the best ally is the one who seems most against you. What's that supposed to mean? Before he could answer, shouting from the mob's camp. Confusion. Horses whinnying. Then gunfire. Not aimed at us, but into the air. Warning shots. What in hell? Itasca started. Through the storm, I saw riders breaking through the mob's lines. Not attacking them, scattering them. 5 men on horseback, riding hard toward the valley, with the mob in chaos behind them. It's a trick, someone shouted. Baxter's men trying to get inside. No. I squinted through the snow, recognizing the lead rider's posture, the way he sat his horse. That's Oswin Hadley. The 5 riders burst through the valley entrance, Oswin in front, his face set hard with determination. Behind him, and this made my heart stop, was Father Elwood from the mission church, barely staying in the saddle. An older woman I didn't recognize, and 2 men in territorial marshal uniforms. Real territorial marshals. Not Baxter's federal puppets. Oswin dismounted fast, helped Father Elwood down. The old priest was shaking from cold and exhaustion, but his eyes were sharp. Chief Makia, Oswin said, breathing hard. I need you to trust me. I know how this looks. I know what I said before, but your sister Mary sent you, Chief Makia said calmly. 2 years ago, when she married into our family, she asked you to watch Baxter, learn his methods, stay close to his operations so we'd have warning when he moved. Oswin's eyes widened. How did you— Your sister writes to me every month, tells me what you're learning, what you're risking to keep her children safe. The chief's expression softened. You've been our eyes in the enemy camp all this time. Then the things you said, I interrupted. Calling me traitor, threatening. Had to maintain cover, Oswin said. Had to make Baxter's men believe I was with them. But when I saw you standing with the chief tonight, I knew. Time for pretending was over. He gestured to the territorial marshals. These men, Marshal Wade and Marshal Collins, they're not on Baxter's payroll. The older woman stepped forward, dignified despite being half frozen. I'm Judge Margaret Hartwell, Territorial Circuit Judge, Mr. Hadley sent a telegraph to Cheyenne 3 hours ago, told me what was happening here. I came as fast as I could. A judge, Chief Makia breathed. Someone who can verify the Winter Sanctuary law. Already have. She pulled documents from inside her coat. Your legal claim to this land is sound. The Winter Sanctuary law is active and binding. Any forced eviction during winter months is illegal under federal statute. She looked around at the gathered Apache families. And any citizen providing shelter to you holds guardian rights, which means Captain Miller can't touch them without going through proper legal channels, I finished. Hope was building in my chest, painful and bright. Channels that take time, months, maybe. By which point, the judge continued, spring will have come and winter protections will be replaced by standard territorial law, which also protects your legal land ownership. Father Elwood coughed, drawing our attention. There's more. The journal Kai's father kept. I've been copying passages, sending them to contacts in Cheyenne. Federal investigators are already looking into Baxter's operations. The forgeries, the bribes, the murders. He looked at Kai. Your father's death will be investigated properly now. Truth will come out. Kai's hand found mine again, squeezing tight. Her eyes were wet. Marshal Wade stepped forward. But there's a problem. Captain Miller's not going to care about laws or evidence if he's on Baxter's payroll. He's got Gatling guns and orders to clear this valley. Judge or no judge, he'll claim military necessity. Say you resisted federal authority. Unless, Marshal Collins added, we have proof of his corruption before he arrives. Something undeniable. Something that makes him the criminal, not you. What kind of proof? Itasca asked. Oswin's face went grim. The kind I've been gathering for 2 years. bills of sale showing Baxter paying Miller, letters discussing how to fabricate evidence, bank records showing money changing hands. He pulled a leather satchel from his saddle. Everything needed to prove Captain Thomas Miller is not enforcing law. He's breaking it. How long before the cavalry gets here? Chief Makia asked. 30 minutes, Oswin said. Maybe less. Judge Hartwell straightened. Then we have 30 minutes to set up a proper legal proceeding. When Captain Miller arrives, he won't find victims to slaughter. He'll find a federal judge conducting official business with territorial marshals as witnesses. You think that'll stop him? Naoma asked quietly. I think, the judge replied, that even corrupt men fear exposure. And when faced with a choice between following illegal orders and saving his own neck, most men choose survival. Hope was spreading through the settlement like warmth from a fire. Families emerged from lodges. Warriors lowered their rifles. Children stopped crying. But I was watching the southern approach, where those federal torches kept coming, steady, relentless. There's something you're not telling us, I said to Oswin. Something about why you rode through a blizzard, scattered that mob, brought a judge and marshals here in the middle of the night. Oswin met my eyes. Baxter's not just corrupt. He's desperate. The railroad investors are pulling out. His schemes are collapsing. This valley, forcing you all out, it's his last chance to prove he can deliver what he promised. So he's got nothing to lose, Chief Makia said slowly. Worse, he's got everything to lose, which makes him more dangerous than ever. Oswin's voice dropped. And there's one more thing, Captain Miller. He doesn't know the railroad deal is falling apart, doesn't know Baxter can't pay him anymore. When he finds out, he'll turn on Baxter to save himself, I finished. Maybe. Or maybe he'll decide to finish the job anyway, out of pride or anger or just pure meanness. Oswin looked at each of us. Either way, the next hour decides everything. Judge Hartwell began organizing her court, a formal legal proceeding right there in the middle of an Apache settlement, in a blizzard, with a mob on one side and cavalry on the other. Father Elwood blessed us all, his trembling hands making the sign of the cross over Apache and white alike. The marshals positioned themselves where they'd be visible, official, undeniable. And I stood with Chief Makia, Naoma, and Kai, watching those federal torches grow closer. Your wife knew, the chief said quietly. Somehow she knew it would come to this. Knew you'd need allies from impossible places. Knew that the answer wouldn't be in fighting or running, but in standing firm on law and truth. She was always smarter than me, I whispered. The first cavalry riders appeared through the storm. I could see Captain Miller at the front, his uniform pristine even in the blizzard, his face set with the certainty of a man following orders he believed were righteous. Behind him, those Gatling guns, mounted on wheeled carriages, death machines that could turn this valley into a graveyard in minutes. Judge Hartwell stood tall, her judicial robes somehow dignified despite being covered in snow. Well, she said, voice carrying clear in the sudden stillness. Let's see if law still means something in this territory. Captain Miller rode forward, saw the judge, saw the marshals, saw the documents in her hands. And his face, Lord, his face, went from confident to confused to something like fear in the span of a heartbeat. Judge Hartwell? His voice cracked slightly. What are you doing here? My job, Captain. The question is, what are you doing here with military force aimed at American citizens on legally owned land during a federally protected winter sanctuary period? The silence stretched. Snow fell. The mob behind us had gone quiet, watching. And then, from somewhere in the darkness beyond the cavalry lines, I heard a voice I'd been dreading. Captain Miller, Baxter's voice called out, cold and commanding. I don't care who's here or what laws they're citing. You have your orders. Clear this valley. Now. Baxter emerged from behind the cavalry lines, riding a black horse that seemed to absorb the torchlight. His face was composed, but I could see the desperation underneath, the look of a man whose empire was crumbling and would do anything to stop the collapse. Captain Miller, Judge Hartwell said, her voice cutting through the wind. You will stand down. I am conducting official territorial business here and, with respect, Judge, this is a federal matter. Miller's hand rested on his sidearm. I have orders from the Department of the Interior. Railroad easement, national interest, eminent domain. Your territorial authority doesn't supersede. Show me the orders, Marshal Wade demanded, stepping forward. Miller hesitated, then pulled papers from his coat. Wade examined them by torchlight, his expression darkening. These are dated 3 days ago, before the blizzard hit, before winter sanctuary law became active. The law doesn't, Miller started. The law says exactly what it says, Captain. Judge Hartwell's voice was steel. No evictions during winter months. These orders are void the moment the first snow fell. You know this. Every military officer on the frontier knows this. It's the law we made after Washita, after Sand Creek, after we learned what forced winter marches do to people. Baxter urged his horse forward. Judge Hartwell, perhaps you don't understand the larger issues at stake. This valley represents— I understand perfectly, Mr. Baxter. You've been forging land documents, bribing federal officials, and murdering anyone who stood in your way. She nodded to Marshal Collins, who pulled out Oswin's evidence. We have testimony, bank records, letters in your own hand discussing payment to Captain Miller here for services rendered. Miller's face went white. That's a lie. I never— $1,500 deposited to your account in Denver. Marshal Collins read from the documents. Payment dated 2 weeks after the Dakota hunting accident, the accident that was actually murder. You can't prove that, Baxter said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Kai stepped forward then, limping on her bad ankle but standing tall. She pulled out her father's journal, held it up for everyone to see. My father wrote everything, every meeting, every threat, every lie you told. Her voice carried across the valley, clear and strong despite 3 years of silence. He knew you'd kill him, so he made sure the truth would survive even if he didn't. The ravings of a dead savage, Baxter spat. No court would. This court will. Judge Hartwell's eyes blazed. And federal investigators are already reviewing copies of these documents in Cheyenne. By the time spring comes, Mr. Baxter, you won't have a railroad. You'll have a prison cell. I watched Baxter's face twist through emotions. Rage, fear, calculation. A cornered animal looking for any way out. Captain Miller, he said quietly, we had an agreement. You know what's at stake here. These people, they're obstacles to progress, to civilization, to your bank account, Miller interrupted. His voice was shaking. You told me this was legitimate. Federal orders, legal authority, everything by the book. It is legal. I have the authority. You have nothing. Miller turned his horse to face Baxter full on. You've made me an accomplice to murder, to corruption, to violations of federal law. My career, my pension, my freedom. You've destroyed all of it with your schemes. The mob behind us was silent now, watching their righteous cause crumble under the weight of truth. Baxter's hand moved toward his coat. I saw it before anyone else, the desperate reach of a man with nothing left to lose. He's got a gun, I shouted. Everything happened at once. Baxter pulled a pistol. Miller's soldiers raised their rifles. The Apache warriors brought up their weapons. Judge Hartwell stood frozen, documents still in her hands, and I did the only thing I could think of. I stepped in front of Kai. The gunshot was deafening. I felt the impact, like being kicked by a horse, spinning me around. The snow beneath me turned red. Again, always red on white, blood and snow, the color of this whole damned winter. I heard Naoma screaming, felt hands on me, gentle hands, strong hands, trying to stop the bleeding. Through fading vision, I saw Baxter on the ground, tackled by his own hired men who'd finally seen him for what he was. Saw Captain Miller ordering his soldiers to stand down. Saw Judge Hartwell shouting something about murder, about witnesses, about justice. But mostly I saw Kai's face above me, tears freezing on her cheeks. Stay with us, she whispered. Please. You promised. You promised to finish what my father started. I tried to speak, but blood filled my mouth. The cold was seeping in, deeper than any winter cold had right to go. This was the cold that didn't let go, the cold Evelyn must have felt when the fever took her. Silas! Chief Machia's voice distant. Silas, stay awake. We need you. The law needs you. You're the guardian. Without you, the winter sanctuary protection. His words faded. The world was going white, everything blending into snow and sky and nothingness. My last thought, before the darkness took me, I kept my promise, Evelyn. I stood with folks who had nobody else. Hope that counts for something. Then nothing but cold, and silence, and the feeling of falling through endless white. When I woke, I didn't know if it was minutes later or days. My chest was on fire, but it was the kind of fire that meant I was still breathing, the kind that meant I wasn't done yet. Voices filtered through, angry voices, official voices. Federal charges of attempted murder, corruption, conspiracy. Captain Miller, you're suspended pending investigation. Winter sanctuary law remains in effect. These people are under legal protection. I forced my eyes open. I was in Chief Machia's lodge, bandaged heavy, surrounded by faces. Naoma, Kai, the chief, Father Elwood. Judge Hartwell. He's awake, Naoma said, relief flooding her voice. Thank God, Father Elwood breathed. We thought we'd lost you, son. I tried to speak. It came out as a whisper. Baxter? In chains, Judge Hartwell said. Formal charges filed. He'll stand trial in Cheyenne for murder, corruption, and attempted murder of a federal guardian. Miller? Suspended, facing his own charges, but he's cooperating now, giving testimony against Baxter in exchange for leniency. My vision was clearing. I could see sunlight through the lodge entrance. Weak winter sun, but sun nonetheless. The storm broke 2 days ago, Chief Machia said. You've been unconscious since Baxter shot you. Bullet went clean through, missed anything vital by inches. Naoma says you're too stubborn to die. 2 days? I tried to sit up, failed. The cavalry, the mob, gone, Kai said, taking my hand. When the marshals arrested Baxter, when Judge Hartwell declared the winter sanctuary law active and you the legal guardian, they had no cause to stay, no orders to follow, nothing to fight for except a lie, and even they could see it for what it was. Oswin Hadley, I managed. Is he safe? Praised for his courage in gathering evidence. His sister and her family are safe too. Chief Machia's expression softened. You have allies, Silas. More than you knew. I closed my eyes, exhaustion pulling at me. But before I could drift off, I felt Kai squeeze my hand. There's something else, she said softly. Something the judge found in the winter sanctuary law. A provision we didn't know about. Judge Hartwell stepped closer. The law states that a guardian relationship formed under winter protection can be made permanent through formal adoption. If both parties consent, the bond becomes legal family with all rights and protections that entails. I looked at Kai, at Naoma, at Chief Machia. You're asking? We're offering, the chief corrected. Family, not just alliance, not just friendship, legal, binding family. You become one of us. We become part of you. Forever. The weight of it settled over me like a blanket. Family. The thing I'd lost when Evelyn died. The thing I'd been searching for without knowing I was searching. I accept, I whispered. Kai's tears fell warm on my hand. Naoma smiled for the first time since I'd known her. Chief Machia nodded slowly, a weight lifting from his shoulders. But outside, I heard new sounds, horses, many horses, and voices calling out with authority that made my blood run cold despite the warmth in the lodge. What is it? I asked. Itasca appeared in the entrance, face grim. Federal investigators, 20 of them. They've come to review the evidence, take depositions, prepare the case against Baxter. He paused. But they're also asking questions about Dakota's death, about other murders, about corruption that goes deeper than just Baxter. How much deeper? Judge Hartwell asked. All the way to the territorial governor's office. Itasca's voice was flat. Seems Baxter wasn't working alone. There's a whole network. Railroad barons, land speculators, federal officials. And they just learned one of their own got arrested. Meaning? Chief Machia asked. though I could tell he already knew. Meaning, this isn't over. Baxter was just one piece. The rest of them, they'll be coming. Maybe not today, maybe not this winter, but they'll come, and they'll be smarter about it, more careful, more dangerous. I looked at the faces around me, my new family, people I'd die for, people who'd almost died for me. Then we'll be ready, I said, voice stronger now, despite the pain. All of us. And together, Judge Hartwell nodded. I'll make sure of it. This case, this evidence, it's going to expose corruption all across the territory. It won't be easy, but a new voice from outside. Sharp, authoritative, female. Where is Judge Hartwell? Where is the man they're calling the Guardian? I need to speak with them both. Now. A woman entered the lodge without waiting for permission. Mid-40s, dressed in expensive traveling clothes despite the winter conditions, with eyes that missed nothing. I'm Elizabeth Baxter, she said, and my heart stopped. Clyde Baxter's daughter. And before anyone reaches for a weapon, I'm not here to defend my father. I'm here to bury him. Elizabeth Baxter stood in the doorway like judgment itself. Her eyes swept the lodge, the wounded white man, the Apache family surrounding him, the judge, the priest, all of it. I said I'm here to bury my father, she repeated. Not in the ground. In prison, where he belongs. Judge Hartwell studied her carefully. Mrs. Baxter, your father is facing federal charges. Any testimony you provide could put him away for life. I know. Elizabeth moved closer to the fire. I've known what my father was for years, known and done nothing, because he was my father, and you don't betray family. Until you realize your father betrayed his own family long before you ever could. She pulled off her gloves, and I saw her hands were shaking. Not from cold, from something deeper. 10 years ago, my mother died. Father said it was fever, same as claimed half the territory that winter. I believed him. Her voice cracked. Last month, going through his papers, I found letters to a doctor in Cheyenne, paying him to ensure my mother didn't recover. Insurance money, he wrote. Capital for the railroad venture. The lodge went silent. Even the fire seemed to stop crackling. He killed my mother for money, Elizabeth whispered. And when I confronted him, you know what he said? He said it was necessary, that progress requires sacrifice, that she was dying anyway. He just hurried it along. Chief Makia's voice was gentle. Why tell us this? Because I have children, a son and 2 daughters, and they have their grandfather's blood in their veins. And I need to know. She looked at each of us. I need to know that blood doesn't make you what you are, that choices matter more than bloodline. Kai spoke up then, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. Your children, where are they now? With my husband, in the settlement 2 valleys over. Elizabeth met Kai's eyes. My husband is Cheyenne. When I married him, my father disowned me, said I'd polluted the family line, but he never knew I had children, never knew his grandchildren exist. Until recently, I said, understanding dawning. Someone told him. Elizabeth nodded. Captain Miller thought he was doing my father a favor, reuniting him with his grandchildren. Didn't know he was handing Baxter leverage. My father threatened to take my children, claim I was unfit, use his federal connections to have them raised properly in white society. She looked at me directly. Unless I helped him, unless I told him everything about the Apache settlements, about who was helping you, about Dakota's journal, Kai finished. You knew where it was. I knew Father Elwood was keeping it safe. My father figured if he could get that journal, destroy it, there'd be no evidence of the murder. He sent the mountain lion. She saw our confused faces. Not literally. He paid a trapper to drive a starving cat toward your gathering grounds, hoping for exactly what happened, chaos, death, something he could use to justify federal intervention. But the cat found Kai and Naoma instead, Naoma said quietly. And Silas saved them, which father didn't plan on. Elizabeth pulled out a leather folder. These are my father's real records, not the doctored ones he showed investors. The truth. Every murder he ordered, every bribe he paid, every law he broke, including orders he gave to Captain Miller. She handed the folder to Judge Hartwell. Miller didn't just take money. He helped plan Dakota's murder, made it look like an accident, filed false reports. He's not just corrupt, he's a killer. Marshal Wade stepped forward. Mrs. Baxter, this testimony, these documents, they'll destroy your father completely. Good. Her voice was steel. Let me be clear. I loved my father once. The man he was before greed poisoned him. But that man's been dead for years. What's left is just a monster wearing my father's face. She looked at me. You stood up to him, risked everything for people you'd never met. That's more than his own daughter did. I struggled to sit up, ignoring the burning in my chest. You're doing it now. That's what matters. Is it? Elizabeth's laugh was bitter. I have blood on my hands, Mr. Cartwright. I knew about Dakota. Maybe not the details, but I knew my father was involved. I could have spoken up, could have stopped him, but I was afraid. Fear doesn't make you guilty, Chief Makia said. Action does, or inaction when action is required, but you're here now, giving testimony, providing evidence. That's courage, even if it came late. Judge Hartwell was reading through the documents, her face growing darker with each page. This is comprehensive. Bank records, written orders, witness statements your father collected as insurance against his co-conspirators. She looked up. With this, we can bring down not just Baxter and Miller, but the entire network of corruption. There's one more thing, Elizabeth said quietly. Something nobody knows. Something that changes everything. The lodge went still again. Outside, I could hear the federal investigators moving through the settlement, taking statements, gathering evidence. Captain Miller's daughter, Elizabeth continued, the one engaged to my father's nephew, she's not real. What do you mean, not real? Marshal Collins demanded. Miller never had a daughter. It was a fiction my father created to explain the payments, to make the relationship seem legitimate. Father's nephew died 3 years ago in a railroad accident. The engagement, the family connection, all lies to cover the money trail. I felt something shift in my understanding. Then why would Miller go along with it? Because my father had something worse on him, something that would have destroyed Miller's career, his freedom, everything. Elizabeth's voice dropped. Miller didn't just help with Dakota's murder. He committed one himself. A Cheyenne leader 10 years ago during the territorial conflicts made it look like tribal warfare, but it was assassination. My father had proof, used it to control Miller ever since. The pieces were falling into place. A web of corruption and murder stretching back a decade, with Baxter at the center, pulling strings, destroying anyone who threatened his vision of progress. Where's the proof? Judge Hartwell asked. In my father's safe, in his Denver office. Elizabeth met the judge's eyes. I can get it. I have the combination, but I'll need protection. Once my father knows I've betrayed him. You'll have it, Marshal Wade promised. We'll send men with you to Denver, secure the evidence, bring it back for trial. Itasca appeared in the doorway again, his expression troubled. Chief, the federal investigators want to speak with Silas. They have questions about the guardian status, about the winter sanctuary law, about... He paused. About whether his relationship with Kai and Naoma was real or just legal convenience to circumvent eviction. My heart sank. They were looking for loopholes, ways to invalidate the protection. It's real, Kai said fiercely, still holding my hand. He's family, not because of some law, because he chose to be. Words won't convince them, Judge Hartwell said. They need proof of genuine relationship, genuine guardian responsibility. I looked at Chief Makia, at Naoma, at Kai, at the family I'd found in the middle of a blizzard, fighting a mountain lion, bleeding in the snow. Then I reached inside my shirt with my good hand, pulled out the leather cord. Evelyn's wedding ring hung there, warm from being against my skin for 2 years. I held it out to Chief Makia. 3 winters ago, my wife came to you, told you to watch for a man who'd risk everything for strangers. She knew I'd come here because she knew me better than I knew myself. My voice was steady despite the pain. This ring represents a promise I made to her. A promise to do right by folks who got nobody else. I want you to keep it, not as payment, as proof. Proof that when I say these people are my family, I mean it with everything I got. Chief Makya took the ring carefully, held it up to the firelight. You'd give up the last piece of your wife? The thing you've carried close to your heart for 2 years? She'd want me to. She sent me here for a reason. This, I gestured at the family around me, the settlement outside, the fight we were still fighting. This is that reason. This is the promise fulfilled. The chief's eyes were wet. He placed the ring in his medicine pouch beside whatever sacred items he kept there. Then it's settled. Your family, now and forever. Blood doesn't make family. Sacrifice does. Love does. Standing beside each other when the world says run, that makes family. Elizabeth watched this exchange with something like wonder. My father spent his life destroying families for profit. And you people just build them out of nothing but choice and courage. Not nothing, Naomi corrected gently. Out of everything that matters. Before anyone could say more, one of the federal investigators entered, young, official, carrying documents and authority in equal measure. I need to speak with Silas Cartwright, he said. We have questions about. He stopped, seeing Elizabeth. Mrs. Baxter, what are you doing here? Providing testimony against my father, she said calmly. The investigator's eyes widened. You're willing to testify? I'm willing to do more than testify. I'm willing to help you find every piece of evidence needed to ensure my father never hurts anyone again. She straightened. But I have conditions. What conditions? My children. My husband. The Apache families in this valley and the next. I want written guarantees of their safety, their legal protections, their land rights. I want it in writing, signed by the territorial governor himself, before I hand over one piece of evidence. The investigator looked at Judge Hartwell, who nodded. That can be arranged. Then we have a deal. Elizabeth turned to leave, then paused. Mr. Cartwright, thank you for showing me what my father could never understand, that the strongest thing a person can do is stand with others, not above them. She left, and the investigator followed, already calling for his colleagues to prepare documents. I lay back, exhausted. The wound in my chest throbbed. My head spun. But for the first time since Evelyn died, I felt something like peace. It's over, I whispered. Chief Makya's expression turned grave. No, Silas, it's not. Elizabeth gave us evidence against Baxter and Miller. But there's still one question nobody's answered. What question? Who told Captain Miller about Elizabeth's children in the first place? Who gave him that information to pass to Baxter? The chief looked toward the door where the investigators had left. Someone knew about Elizabeth's family. Someone who wanted to give Baxter leverage. Someone who's been working against us from the inside all along. My blood went cold. The betrayer wasn't Baxter, wasn't Miller, wasn't even Elizabeth, who'd been coerced. It was someone else, someone close, someone we trusted. And they were still out there, watching, waiting, ready to strike again. The betrayer's identity hung in the air like smoke from the council fire. Who knew about Elizabeth's family? I asked, mind racing through every conversation, every interaction since I'd arrived. Who had access to that information? Chief Makya's face was grave. Only a few people, Elizabeth herself, her husband. And Father Elwood, Naoma whispered, horror in her voice. He married them. He knew about the children. But Father Elwood was outside with the investigators, his frail form visible through the lodge entrance. Even from here, I could see him blessing people, offering comfort. The same man who'd hidden Dakota's journal, who'd ridden through a blizzard to bring the judge. No, Kai said firmly. Not Father Elwood. He's been protecting us, risking everything to maintain his cover, came a new voice. We turned. Father Elwood stood in the entrance, but something was different. The frailty was gone. His posture had changed, stronger, more confident, and in his hand was a pistol, aimed steady at Chief Makya. I'm sorry, he said, and his voice had changed too, younger, harder. I truly am, but this has gone far enough. My wound screamed as I tried to move, but Naoma held me down. Warriors reached for weapons, but Father Elwood, or whoever he really was, shook his head. Don't. I have men positioned around this lodge. Any gunfire, and they open up on the families outside. Children first. His eyes were cold. I don't want to do that. But I will if you force me. Who are you? Chief Makia asked, voice steady despite the gun pointed at his chest. My name is Thomas Whitmore. Railroad security, Pinkerton agent hired by the investors 3 years ago to ensure their interests were protected. He gestured with the pistol. Clyde Baxter thought he was running this operation. Truth is, I was managing him, feeding him information, guiding his decisions, making sure the railroad got what it needed. You killed Dakota, Kai breathed. No, that was Baxter's mess, though I helped cover it up. But I knew about the journal, knew Father Elwood was keeping it safe, so he smiled grimly. I became Father Elwood. The real priest died of fever 4 months ago. I took his place, his identity, his church, perfect position to watch everything, to control information flow. My mind reeled. Every blessing, every prayer, every moment of guidance, all lies. You brought the judge here, Judge Hartwell said, stepping forward. You helped us. Because Baxter became a liability. His corruption was sloppy, obvious, drawing attention. The railroad investors wanted him gone, but cleanly. So I orchestrated his downfall, made him the villain while the real operation continued. Whitmore's expression was almost regretful. You all played your parts perfectly. The noble Apache chief, the honorable white rancher, the corrupt federal agent. Beautiful story. Very compelling. Then why reveal yourself now? I asked. You won. Baxter's done. Miller's done. The railroad is bankrupt, Whitmore interrupted. The investors pulled out 2 days ago. Baxter's schemes, his failures, they spooked everyone. The whole operation's collapsing. He laughed, bitter. 3 years of work, and for what? Nothing. So you kill us? Chief Makia's voice was calm. That your plan? Murder everyone who knows the truth? No. I disappear. But first I need insurance. Proof that I was just following orders, that the real criminals were Baxter and Miller. He gestured to Kai. The journal. Give it to me, along with any copies. I destroy them, file my report, and the investors' names stay clean. Everyone's happy. Except the families you destroyed, Naoma said quietly. The people who died for your profit. Acceptable losses. Progress requires sacrifice. Whitmore moved closer. The journal. Now. Kai looked at Chief Makia. The chief nodded slowly. She pulled out her father's journal, held it toward Whitmore, but as he reached for it, she spoke. My father wrote in code, traditional Apache symbols mixed with English. Only family can read it. Her eyes met his. And you're not family. Whitmore's face darkened. Then you'll translate it for me. Every page. Or what? Came a voice from outside. You'll hurt them. Won't do you much good if you're dead. Oswin Hadley stepped into view, rifle aimed at Whitmore's head. Behind him, a dozen Apache warriors had positioned themselves silently, weapons trained. Drop it, Oswin said calmly. Your men are already disarmed. Took us about 10 seconds once we figured out who you really were. How did you? Elizabeth Baxter, Judge Hartwell said. She mentioned her father kept files on everyone, including his Pinkerton agent, including you, Mr. Whitmore. She gave us your real name, your background, your assignment. We've been waiting for you to reveal yourself. I watched Whitmore's face change, confidence to confusion, to resignation. He lowered his weapon slowly. Smart, he admitted. Using me to trap me. Very smart. Marshal Wade moved in, taking Whitmore's gun, snapping iron cuffs around his wrists. Thomas Whitmore, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, accessory to murder, and impersonating a federal official. As they led him away, Whitmore looked back at us. You think this changes anything? The railroad will come eventually. Maybe not this year, maybe not this decade. But progress doesn't stop. You can't hold it back forever. Chief Makia stood, walked to the entrance, looked out at his people gathering in the dawn light. The storm had finally broken. Weak winter sun touched the snow, making everything shine. You're right, he said. We can't stop progress, but we can shape it. Guide it. Make sure it includes us instead of erasing us. He turned back to Whitmore. That's the difference between you and us. You see people as obstacles. We see them as the whole point. They took Whitmore away. The federal investigators followed, along with their evidence, their testimony, their cases against Baxter, Miller, and now the Pinkerton agent who'd orchestrated it all. I struggled to my feet, Naoma supporting me. Through the lodge entrance, I could see families emerging into the sunlight, children playing in the fresh snow, elders talking by the council fire, life continuing, stronger for having been tested. It's really over, Kai said, still holding the journal. My father's death will be investigated properly. The truth will come out. And the Winter Sanctuary law? I asked Judge Hartwell. Stands. Your guardian status is confirmed, documented, and legally binding. She smiled. Your family now, Mr. Cartwright. In every way that matters. Chief Makya walked over, opened his medicine pouch, pulled out Evelyn's ring. He held it out to me. This belongs to you. The promise is kept. I looked at the ring, warm from being next to the chief's sacred items. Looked at the family around me, Naoma, Kai, Itasca, all of them. Looked at the settlement outside, alive and safe and whole. No, I said slowly. Keep it, not as proof anymore, as a reminder. A reminder that family isn't found in blood or law or property. It's found in the choices we make when everything's on the line. The chief's eyes glistened. He returned the ring to his pouch, then did something unexpected. He pulled me into an embrace, careful of my wounds. Brother, he whispered. One word. But it meant everything. Spring came 6 weeks later. The valley transformed from white to green overnight, it seemed. Wildflowers blooming, streams running, birds returning. My ranch, what was left of it, became the foundation for something new. We rebuilt together, Apache and White working side by side. Not a ranch this time, a trading post, a meeting place, a bridge between worlds that had been kept separate too long. Elizabeth Baxter's testimony, combined with the evidence from Dakota's journal and Whitmore's confession, brought down corruption networks across 3 territories. The railroad never came through our valley. Instead, it was rerouted north, built with proper compensation to landowners and respect for tribal territories. Progress still came, but it came different, inclusive, negotiated, human. I stood on the porch of the new building one morning, watching the sun rise over the valley. Kai approached, no longer limping, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might want this, she said, handing me one. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the settlement wake up. Smoke rising from lodges, children running to morning lessons, traders arriving with goods to exchange. Do you miss it? Kai asked. Your old life, before the cat, before all this. I thought about it, about the isolation, the slow dying of dreams, the loneliness that had filled my days since Evelyn passed. No, I said, that wasn't living, that was just surviving. This? I gestured at the valley, the people, the life we'd built together. This is living. She smiled, took my hand, not romantic, we'd never be that, but family. The kind of family you choose, the kind you build from courage and sacrifice and standing together when the world says run. From somewhere in the settlement, I heard children singing, a mixture of Apache words and English, traditional melodies and new ones, all blending into something neither old nor new, but uniquely ours. Chief Makya joined us on the porch, his pine staff tapping softly against the wood. You know, he said, there's an Apache saying, the best prayer is action. Your wife knew that. That's why she sent you to us. She always was smarter than me, I said. The old ache of her loss now softened into something gentler. Memory instead of wound. She knew what we all know now, the chief continued, that one person standing for what's right, risking everything for strangers, can change the world. Not the whole world, perhaps, but their world, the world that matters. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the morning mist. In the distance, I saw riders approaching. Not a threat this time, but travelers. People who'd heard about the settlement where Apache and White lived together, prospered together, built something new together. More would come, some with good intentions, some with bad. There'd be more struggles, more threats, more battles to fight, but we'd face them together. And that made all the difference. Now, I ain't one for speeches, and I never been much for fancy words. But sitting here all these years later, watching that valley prosper, watching families, Apache and white both, raise their children together in peace, I reckon there's things worth saying. See, dignity ain't something you inherit. It ain't in your bloodline or your bank account or the color of your skin. Dignity is what you do when nobody's watching and nobody would blame you for taking the easy way out. It's standing up when standing up costs you everything. It's choosing what's right over what's safe. That winter of '76 taught me something Evelyn knew all along. Family ain't about blood. It's about who you'd freeze for, who you'd bleed for, who you'd stand beside when the whole world's telling you to run. Chief Makia and his people, they became more family to me than most folks I'd known my whole life. And justice? Real justice. It ain't always loud. It ain't always quick. Sometimes it's silent as snow falling, steady as water wearing down stone. But it comes. Long as there's people willing to stand for what's right, willing to sacrifice comfort for conscience, justice finds a way. If you've ever felt alone, like the world's too big and your problems too heavy, I've been there. Stood in that exact spot, wondering if one person could make a damn bit of difference. Answer is yes. Maybe not the whole world, but your world, the part that matters, the people who need someone to stand with them. That mountain lion taught me something too. Sometimes the scariest thing you'll ever face is the thing that brings you exactly where you need to be. 3 claw marks across my chest led me to family, to purpose, to a life worth living instead of just surviving. So I'm asking you now, where are you listening from tonight? What's your valley? Who's your family? The one you chose or the one that chose you? Think about it. And remember, dignity's worth more than blood, family's who you choose, and justice. Well, justice is patient, but it never forgets. This is Silas Cartwright's story. Every word of it true, down to the bone. Until next time, may you know who you'd freeze for, and may you never have to face that cold alone. Be well, friends. Be brave. Be family to someone who needs it. God's mercy on you all.